All right, thanks, Aaron. And as the millennial, I want to start out by talking about my two favorite topics, which are cool tech and myself. So, as all good millennials do, I wake up every single day and spend every waking hour engaging with some social media platform, right? And in between checking to see what my childhood best friend had for breakfast yesterday, these platforms are storing all kinds of information related to my interests, whether that be drones, mapping, biking, skiing, golf, camping, travel, you name it, it's all stored within these platforms, which, as a millennial, makes me feel like a special snowflake and keeps me coming back to these platforms to find out more information about my interests. But really, where is the real value in this data? When this data is combined and this information is attached to a signature to a user, such as myself, that becomes an incredibly powerful tool for marketing agencies, right? They now know all of my interests. They can predict which product I'm most likely to want next because I've engaged with Facebook today and clicked on a couple of pairs of new skis. The Black Diamond ad is going to start popping up in my feed with what the most likely product is going to be for me. And these algorithms have gotten so powerful that Facebook is now keying in on the attributes that I would like in a leader. And it's actually quite scary in that they're starting to suggest who it is that I'm going to vote for in the 2020 election, and it's quite accurate. But to get back to Aaron's point, right? Why are we going to let the retail industries benefit from big data? Why aren't we, as an industry, going to benefit from big data and take advantage of that for our projects? Why don't we take all that information that's collected in Connex boxes and stored with some project that nobody's seen in 2 years, connect that information and use that to our benefit? Provide that information for every single project, for every single stakeholder that's involved in that project so that they get to benefit from the mistakes that others have made. Now, a lot of you are probably thinking, yeah, okay, that sounds utopian. How could we possibly ever do that? How are we going to get all this information normalized into the same environment? I'm hearing most of this coming from my team right now. But I want to step into a real life scenario. So for those of you that are unaware, the Appalachian Basin is one of the richest natural gas plays in North America. And over the course of the last 5 years, more infrastructure has been built in Appalachia than the previous 50. And unfortunately, as a result of all this infrastructure development, we're removing vegetation and deciduous forests from steep hill slopes that have unconsolidated soils. Those unconsolidated soils, in the event of a big rainstorm, can cause mass soil movement, or worse, a landslide, which is compromising pipelines and compromising assets within the region and bringing about all of this negative press, right? This industry is under fire. If they don't react to this issue, then we're likely not going to have an industry anymore. So this is an example where we've brought industry together to supply the data to help come up with a solution. And as an example, what you're looking at here is a high-resolution photo with a pipeline centerline overlaid on the top of it, right? And we can all sit here and look at that, and it's a pretty picture. We could see the pipeline right away. We could see probably where the pipeline is. But what does that tell us? When we combine that information and we take the topographic data from the remote sensing products, we take machine learning to that terrain data, we identify where those hazards exist on the landscape, and then we can provide a proximity analysis of those hazards. Now we're getting somewhere. But this is still reactive. This is finding the problems after they've already occurred. How do we bring in hydrology models to take more of a symptomatic approach? Where are there poor drainage areas on the right-of-way that contribute to mass soil movement? How can we identify that ahead of time using infrastructure and remote sensing data? And so on and so forth. How can we take geologic information and soils information, combine it with all that other data, and develop a predictive model to show us where on the landscape those events are most likely to occur? And better yet, how do we distill that down to a product that allows people to act quickly, act in a site-specific manner, and also plan their next project in this region that's going to be right next door, or maybe even in the same right-of-way, so that everybody is aware of all of the same hazards? Now, okay, that's one example. That's on the East Coast, that's in Appalachia, it's far away from here. Maybe there's a few people here that's relevant too. But let's look at another case, right? Seems like every single year, California's on fire. California burns to the ground I don't know how people live in California anymore, to be honest with you. What we're seeing though is headlines like this: California's largest utility provider could face murder charges for wildfires. So for those of you that are unaware, in November, the Camp Fire burned 150,000 acres. It was California's most destructive fire. Not just because of the amount of land that it burned, but that it burned the entire city of Paradise and unfortunately killed 46 people. The likely cause of the Camp Fire was a spark from a utility asset due to vegetation being too close to the utility, ignited the vegetation, and now we have widespread destruction. So again, here's the scenario where how can we take this data and this information, combine infrastructure data? What you're looking at right here, this is a utility asset. And underneath that utility asset is a topographic data set derived from a remote sensing flight, which shows us where the critical areas of vegetation encroachment are. So in these hotspots down here on the right-hand corner, that's an area where you're likely to see canopy starting to influence that infrastructure. So here's a tool that could be used to help stop a destructive natural disaster. But not all wildfires can be prevented, and not all of them are caused by man. And when we do have a wildfire, what can we do after the fact with this information to accelerate the reclamation process? What you're looking at right here is an issue that came up from the state of California. The state of California places $500,000 on the head of a salmon. And in the event of a fire like the Camp Fire that you see here, the state of California really wants to target the tributaries and that critical habitat for that salmon species. So how can we take that information, that wildlife information about that habitat, about those critical tributaries, combine that with soils information, combine that with hydrology models and remotely sensed data to figure out where we need to target our reclamation efforts? Where can we yield the greatest good from our monetary initiatives? And again, another issue in the wake of Paradise and the Camp Fire was this issue of infrastructure burning, right? This is a city that caught on fire. And all the toxins, I don't know about your guys' garage, but mine, I don't think it's gonna look pretty if all that stuff ends up in the environment after a fire. And that is yet another critical thing to target when it comes to post-fire reclamation. So how can we take vegetation data from the burn scar, figure out where it burned the hottest, where it burned the most infrastructure, right? Where that infrastructure is. What are the soil conditions there? What are the hydrology conditions? And how do we combine all that to figure out which tributaries and which areas are most likely to see these contaminants? As we sit here today and we go through all these stations and we're all learning about reclamation practices and where we want the industry to be, I want us all to keep this vision in mind. When you're thinking about your projects, you're thinking about your business, what you do every single day, think about the information that you're collecting and how if we put all of that together, what we could benefit, right? Certain companies want to keep data close to the chest, right? It's what gives you a competitive advantage. You don't want your competition finding out about it. They're going to get all the same advantages you are, so on and so forth. But these aren't the issues that we want to compete over. These are the issues that we want to come together over, because these are the issues that are threatening these industries. So our neighbor's failure or our competitor's failure is our failure. What could the headlines look like a year from now? If we all come together around these issues and we get ahead of it and we play offense, what could the future look like? U.S. establishes energy dominance. Pipeline project restores pollinator habitat. I don't think we've ever seen that one. California evades another fire season by using aerial analytics. Or Earth's environment reaches all-time cleanliness, so activists are turning to space. And if you guys aren't aware of this, space trash is a really big issue, so I think we will see that. But anyway, that's all I have. Enjoy the beautiful day out there, get some sunshine, put on some sunblock, and yeah, just enjoy yourselves. Thank you.